I'm going to show you how to make a scatter plot using your results from a lab that was inputted into Google Sheets. This is much easier than hand drawing a graph, and it's much more efficient, especially because you can share it between your group members. I'm going to start by highlighting the results that I want. So I wanted my x variable to be mass in kilograms and my y variable to be weight in newtons. So those are the only parts of the table that I'm going to actually highlight. I'm going to insert and select a chart. And it's going to automatically default to a column chart or a bar graph, which is definitely not what I want. So the first problem is that it's just chosen a frequency as our y variable, our y variable, which is not what we want. So I need to change the x-axis to being mass and the y-axis to being weight. So I'm going to do that right in this section that pops up first, this data section. So I'm going to change this, add x-axis, and I'm going to choose the cells that correspond to that axis, just like we did earlier this year when we were playing around with central tendency. So I'm going to say D3 to D9. Is that right? No, D4 to D9. And now I'm going to get rid of mass from here, and now I just have my weight and mass on this graph. And now I want it to be a scatter plot, so I'm going to click on scatter. And the nice thing here is that it has plotted the points the way I would want them to be, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it plots the points in a weird way. It treats them as if they are words. And that's definitely not what we want. And if that's the case, then you would check in horizontal axis. If this box is checked that says treat labels as text, you'll see this happen, and it will look like the points on a bar graph, which is not what we want, and that happens because of the types of data issues that we've been talking about with respect to nominal, ordinal, discrete, and continuous. So when you're making a scatter plot, you want to make sure you unclick the treat labels as text box if it is clicked, and that will plot your points the way you want. If you want to mess around with their min and max values, you can do that here as well. So I want mine to start at 0 for sure, but maybe I don't want it to go to 0.5. Maybe I want it to go to 0.6. So I can play with that and then move my graph around a little bit. And I can do the same thing with my vertical axis or my y-axis. I definitely want my minimum value to be 0, but maybe I want my maximum value to be more than 5. Maybe I want it to be 5.5. So that there's more space on my graph. And you can also muck about with your grid lines here too. So if you want to have more grid lines so it's easier to see your points and figure out what they're supposed to be, you can change the major and minor grid line count. So for example, for this 5.5 one, maybe I only want 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to have grid lines. So I'm just going to say 5. That didn't work the way I wanted. So you can mess around with it however you want, see what works. That doesn't work, so I'm probably just going to go back to auto. And then you can make minor grid lines too. So maybe you want grid lines in between your grid lines. That's always an option as well. And once we have done that, I want to make a trend line, like a line of best fit. And on paper, I would have to do that by fiddling around with a ruler. So a computer is much nicer because it will do it using an algorithm that's much more accurate. So all you're going to do is click series like I did right here, and then trend line. And when you click trend line, a beautiful line of best fit is going to show up right there, and that's exactly what we wanted. Now, if you happen to click out of your table and you're not done editing, if you click these little 3 dots in the corner here, that will give you back your menu here, because I want to do some work with titling because my axes are not titled the way I want. So I'm going to title my graph maybe mass versus weight. And this part's not that intuitive. If you want to change the axes titles, you have to do it from this little drop-down menu here with this tiny little triangle. So I want my horizontal axis to be mass in kilograms, and I want my vertical axis to be weight in newtons. And that should leave my graph looking exactly how I want it.